Oh, we have a visitor.
Hold on.
I have nobody to talk to, and now everybody wants to come in at the same time.
Oh my gosh.
Just kidding.
This is
Andrea, can
exciting.
you
I'm
hear
glad
me?
we're doing this.
Okay, well, Andrea, if you can hear me, say something.
She chatted. She said,
Oh, she did? Oh, hi. Oh, okay, okay.
hi.
Yeah.
Hi.
So I think this is it for now until Mr. D comes in, but he's actually in Pakistan, so he is in a weird time zone.
Oh.
So he could potentially not, or all of a sudden show up in the middle of it. But I would love if everybody kind of introduced themselves and where you're at. And so I know that some of us already know each other in here. So Nandi, you can start, and then, yeah.
Okay. And then just so you know, Victoria, Andrea just put in the chat that she can't hear us. Just so you know.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Hi, I'm Nandi. I am calling from Denver. What do you want me to say?
So I was thinking, that's perfect. Your name, where you're calling from, and then pretty much basically like how far along in the book you are. Because this mid-month check-in is really just to see like, one, I know I just sent the invitation to Steph, so like she's gonna be like, I read the title, and now I'm.
I mean, I'm not much further along. I think I'm on chapter 3. I'm listening to the audiobook, which is interesting because Eckhart is speaking and people are asking him questions. So
Yeah.
it's cool. So I'm listening to the audiobook, but I think chapter 3.
Yeah, so I was gonna say how far you are in the book, and then like I guess your first impressions of the book so far.
I'm enjoying it, and I feel like I want to go back and listen to it several times because I feel like it's one of those books that I'm going to get gradually. It's going to sink in deeper a little bit more each time I listen to it. So far, I'm enjoying it. It's bringing me back to the very simple things. It's just like feeling the chair that I'm sitting in and the clothes that I'm wearing, and that felt good. Those exercises felt good to do.
I feel that on a deep level. Steph, yeah, go ahead.
I can go. I have not read the book yet. Like I haven't opened it, but I showed up, so I'm here and signing in from Austin, Texas. And I am actually really interested in reading this book because the more I've been attracting like more people with like the same goals and who are trying to make it out in here. Like, everyone just keeps that book. The name of like this book keeps coming up.
Yeah.
So I was just like, I'm gonna jump on that and I'm gonna read it. So I'll be done by the 30th. So
yeah.
Be good.
Yeah, I had the same. It's interesting you said that to me when I had sent you the link before, because I used to be, like, honestly, my whole life is books, and I love it. It just brings me so much joy. And I used to be a bookseller at Half Price Books, and I would shelve that book on a daily basis because it was a used bookstore, so we would consistently sell out of them, and then people would resell their books back to us. And so I was so familiar with it, yet I never jumped into it ever, not once. And I never understood if it was just like my rebellious nature for anything mainstream or what. But this last time somebody had finally said, hey, you should read this. It hit home in a way I was like, okay, you know what? I surrender. Ironically, I'll just give into this. So
Yeah, I had a.
Wait, who are you?
Who am I? That's a good question. I don't know who I am. My name is Sasha Teodosiev, and I am attached with this one right here.
Mr. Human.
My love. And I've had some health issues, and I had an experience that happened that really like where I almost kind of died, I guess, and it really snapped me out of like complete thought, like complete thinking, and it got me started on this whole journey. And so I read The Power of Now probably like 3 or 4 years ago, or 3 years ago.
a while ago. I don't know exactly, and I'm re-listening to it again, and it's it just helps so fucking much. So it's really freeing, and it's really I like the reminders in this book, but it is very dense as far as like, okay, I gotta really chew on this chapter, you know? And so there's like chronically, like I'll listen to like 3 or 4 chapters and I'm like, oh my God, I forgot half of it because I just got stuck to this one thing or that one thing. And especially with this book, and once you get on this journey, I feel like you re-listening to it after a while gives you a different, like a newer perspective. It just keeps getting like a more rich experience. So I'm really enjoying the shit out of this book. So that's me, and I'm sticking to it.
I don't know if you guys can, like, when I'm in the calls with Nandi and stuff, if you guys and Cynthia, we like to swear.
That's
yeah.
fine.
Same here. It is welcomed and encouraged.
Cynthia, how about you, babe?
Okay, good. So I am Cynthia. I'm in Tampa, Florida. Hi, everyone. I know you can't see me, but literally it's been a day, so I'm like just trying to get my life together right now. But I really wanted to make sure I came and really just because I wanted to connect with other people. Like someone already said, like to just have people who are like-minded. And V is amazing, and she, you know, just being able to have the book and so many people I knew had been talking about it, like Sasha said, like that I just kind of felt like I needed to just do it. It's now or never. Like I have all the time in the world. So, you know, I'm excited. And so far from what I've read, it seems so deep, and I'm just kind of like, why did it take me so long to finally read it? You know, I feel like it's, I don't know, I'm excited for it, but I'm kind of like blown. Like Sasha was saying, you get stuck on one point and I'm like, oh my God, like this can take me like days to really like digest. And I love that, you know?
For sure.
So.
And just so everybody knows, Cynthia is like my soul sister. I met her in Florida with my other best friend. It was like this trifecta, holy trinity thing that we joke about all the time. So we always try to stay connected. So I really genuinely, honestly love, and I'm so happy that you're here with us, Cynthia, because it's just a pleasure. I know you're super busy. I know we're all super busy, but I really appreciate you taking the time to, I hesitate to ever say like better yourself, because it's not like there's something wrong with you. However, it's nice to have the humility and the humbleness to be able to be like, okay, what can I do better at? Or how can I be better? I don't know. You guys know what I mean.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like that is exactly how I feel. And I'm glad that you like put this together. This is awesome.
I'm stoked. I fucking love reading. And I'm so excited to nerd out with other people on books too. Like, I don't get to, whenever you read a book and there's nobody else around, like they haven't read the book either, so they have no idea the excitement that you're talking about. Oh. Andrea, I know that you can't really hear. I don't know if you can even hear me right now. I think if you can hear me, feel free to have your input in the comment section. I'll just read it out loud for you. But for everybody else too, also don't necessarily wait for me to be done talking or to talk. If somebody else in the group, because I want this to be just like a group chat. It's not like I'm teaching you anything. We're just coming together to learn and talk about things. But if somebody else says something that you resonate with or you want to jump on, like if it's within you now in this moment and you want to share it, don't hesitate. So.
I don't think Steph introduced herself.
Stephanie introduced herself.
She did?
Yeah.
In the book?
Yeah.
Oh. Where was I?
You were not in the now. Just kidding.
I was in the then.
But so I'm Victoria. I'm in Denver. Obviously, I know all of you. like I was saying before, this book has been introduced into my existence a myriad of times, and it wasn't until the most recent on a different live streaming app where I felt, okay, it's that now is the time, as ironically as that sounds. And I agree with what Nandi said. It almost feels, and what everybody's saying, it's this simplicity where you didn't realize how bad you needed it until you actually got it again and again and again and again and again. I think for me personally in my journey, I spend so much time grasping what's perfect and what's going to work. Throughout my experience so far, I feel like I can theorize or justify my behavior or reasons for behavior because of, trauma from when I was a kid and feeling unsafe. So as soon as I find something that works, I want to implement that over and over and over and over and over again, only to find out what worked yesterday is not working for who I am or what I ask for today, which I still struggle with even reading this book. Like after I find a golden nugget in this book, I'll implement that thought and practice it, and then I'll try it again later and be like, oh crap, that's still not like the mantra that I'm exactly needing in this moment. So it's really, I think, the power of surrender for me. I think this is the safest way I've been able to understand surrender, if that makes sense. So
I love what you say about surrender, though, because he painted it in a way where I think a lot of times it's very taxing. There's all these steps, right? But he's just like, just be like, just there's nothing that you need to do. There's no proving that's necessary. Like surrender is just like this loving acceptance. But he doesn't even like add like the characterization of loving to it. It's just like what is. And it's just so nice. It's just like it's that release. And I wrote down as you were talking, one of the things I remember from the book that I really liked that is that he says that these are truths that your brain already knows. He's like, I'm not telling you anything new. These are things that you already inherently know, your higher self, your subconscious, whatever you want to call it. Your best self, your most aligned self already knows these things. And I think that's the piece that comes with everything that he says, that's like that resonates with some part of you that just feels like a breath of fresh air. Mm-hmm. And that's what I pick up on when you say that surrender piece. It's these things that I already knew. It's coming home to myself, and that feels so good.
Yeah, there's this phrase in the book, and like I know that not everybody has read it, and some of us has read bits and pieces, and some of us have read the whole thing. And I think and we always say cycles and seasons in our life are going to call for different truths to be shown to us. And for me right now, in my experience, when he said in the book, resist nothing, I was like, and this is what I talked about like in the group call on Wednesday. Like, I was having panic attacks in the grocery store. And so I was trying to practically apply that idea of resist nothing. And as soon as I felt it, it went away. And I was like, oh, it's this simple?
Does that mean resist?
Resist.
Don't like so. Allow resistance too?
I think so.
Like
to acknowledge that you're resisting something instead of resisting the fact that you're resisting something.
That's crazy. Okay, so haven't read it yet, but Nandi, when you said that it was teaching you surrender and accepting the way, like basically the things the way they are, it's so crazy that you said that. And yesterday I ran into this book that apparently I must have gotten at some thrift store or whatever. But it's like this mini version of the Tao Te Ching. I think that's how you pronounce it. You're supposed to say the T as a D or whatever. And basically it talks about like the Taoist way, how they live as is, like they accept things as they are instead of going against the grain and trying to control everything, because that's what we do, especially when we experience trauma and negative experiences, and we don't want to dive into that world again. So that's basically all this is about. And some of it I'm like, but what do you mean? Like there's stuff in there where I'm like, but I don't get, because it says express yourself completely, then keep quiet. And I'm like, and it goes on, just all of these things where it's like this and this and this, but you have to just be. And I'm like, okay, all right, I'm just gonna be.
Fine.
It's like the way of no way. You're like, what?
Oh my goodness, that is the exact. It says something like, I'm gonna find it while you guys are continue, and I'll find it.
I can almost promise you. Have you read this book, Nandi?
No.
Now? I would say probably 80 to 90% of people who have read The Power of Now have probably also at least dabbled once or twice with the Tao. So
Oh boy.
I should got excited. You saw that?
So, my rice. Listen, in this household, Dominicans don't burn rice, so I'm gonna make sure.
Oh yeah.
My mom almost broke up with her boyfriend when I was younger because he touched her and tried to stir her rice. She was like,
yeah, when I'm cooking, don't touch my food. But yeah, that is so crazy. So the Tao of Pooh, I have finished reading that book, and that is crazy. I love that book. But yeah, that just made me think of something.
has everybody here read the Tao of Pooh?
That's funny. I actually do have that in my Audible, and I've read like the first couple of chapters, but I haven't finished it yet. So now I'm going to have to go back and finish it.
The second half is way better if you ask me.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, I'm going to have to go back and finish it.
What do they call the Tao of Pooh? They call busy something, gotta go, or something like that. Like they call people that are too busy. They don't like absolutely have no time to just be, just constantly just going. Although be isn't busy.
Let's find out.
Hey, yeah.
She's like, I got all the books.
Jeff's library. Yeah.
I'm so glad this even came up because I have not read this book since like high school, and I'm a completely different person now. So
I share that book with Victoria on YouTube.
Yeah. What's interesting is like one of the things that I wanted to bring up at the end of this, but we can just bring it up now, is if you guys are interested in continuing the book club, obviously, what books would you want to read? And it sounds like I have never read the Tao of Pooh.
I haven't finished it.
So I might add it on the book club's app. There's like a books we want to read section, and I'll add that there, and we'll see if we want to like vote on it and see.
Cool.
I like it. Oh, I found it. I found the phrase. It's practice not doing, and everything will fall into place.
Have you ever seen the movie Forgetting Sarah Marshall?
Yes.
When Paul Rudd tells Jason something to like, he's trying to teach him to surf, right? I feel like this is like the essence of the Tao. This is the way. And so he's trying to teach him to surf. So he has a surfboard on the sand. And so he's trying to teach him how to like jump up on the surfboard so he can prepare to ride the wave. But he jumps up and then he goes, no, too much. You're doing too much. Go back down. So he lays back down. He's like, okay, now go. Now do something. Now jump up. He jumps up and goes, no, you're doing too much. Lay back down. And it's just this idea of like, you're doing too much, but like, what's too much? Because how do I move forward? Like, what's the next step if I can't do anything? If I'm supposed to do nothing?
Wax on, wax off.
Yeah. Mr. Miyagi needs to come back. Okay, so Andrea, really quick, she said, the part about how we are constantly thinking and how our identity is usually attached to our ideas and emotions really rang true for me. I respect your need to like stay with the microphone off, Andrea. However, I can't lie and say that I really crave to know this deeper part of you right now. I can only speak from a relevant perspective, and I understand that wholeheartedly. I think that part of the book is been such a revelation for me in the way that like part of my mantras, and it doesn't work every single time, has become like I allow my ego to die, like especially with creativity and especially with social media and especially with who I present myself to be to other people. Like I feel alone and isolated in the experience that I have, that I feel like I have to check my motives every single second of the day. Like, why do I have to be so mindful of what I'm doing to the point where like I don't know if what I'm doing is right or it's correct, and then it makes me doubt whether or not I can trust myself. But it feels like if I were to take action and I were to pause and look at what I'm doing, the mantra that I would insert that's inspired by the power of now would be like, is this thought contributing to my essence, or am I pursuing a notion or an idea of who I wish to be for yada, 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 for X, for Y, for Z, for somebody else? And so I really resonate with that too, Andrea, where it's like my mind, even when I find that presence, I recognize it, and then my mind immediately comes back and it turns back on and it wants to create something like an identity out of that presence. And I'm like, stop, chill.
That actually makes me think of so two things. The first thing is like I think of Nandi, like how she talks about sitting with your emotions, like when an emotion is present, like sitting with it and then seeing what it's trying to teach you. But something that my therapist has made me do is basically every emotion, both positive and negative, like she's had me form an identity for them. So like make them into their own entity. Like they each have a name, like overwhelm, like Oscar, overwhelm. Like when I feel overwhelmed, I know Oscar is present and he's only here, he's in the room because he's teaching me something that I have not learned yet. Or teaching me something new. Like he's been here before and he's taught me something, but he's back, and I'm not gonna like be like fuck off, but I'm gonna be like, okay, why are you here? You aren't me. Like I am not sadness, but I am sitting with sadness right now for a reason. So that's something. Haven't read the book, but I can give some insight, guys.
I feel like that is what he's talking about.
Yeah.
Like okay. He is talking about like kind of separating yourself from what's occurring.
I like that.
Not labeling it, not judging it, but sitting with it and recognizing it. Because I think he talks about that so far, at this point, it's like the halfway point in the book, but yeah.
I think the way he talks about it is as like the seer or as the watcher. And that's the practice that he's trying to teach us. We're trying to develop of not immediately having a thought or an emotion and being attached to it. So I don't know, if somebody says something that you don't like and then you make it mean something about you, like creating a space, somebody says something that you don't like, you notice, oh, I have this emotion about what this person says. This means nothing about me or my character or any, like creating the space to see what's going on instead of just attaching yourself to it. And that, so tricky. There's this word in Buddhism, and I always mess it up. It's either Shepna or Shenpa, and I swear I have dyslexia because I don't know. I flip letters. So it's either Shepna or Shenpa, but it's the moment you get hooked into an emotion, and that visual helps me so much. It's just it's noticing the hook and being able to notice and be like, oh, okay. For me, that was like when I would get into an argument with Tyler, where I was like starting to notice the second I got triggered, and instead of giving into the trigger and running with it, like noticing the trigger and being like, okay, I am triggered. Okay, what do I want to do about it? And in the same book, it talks about the two wolves, the ego wolf, so to speak, and like the wolf, it's like a Native American tale.
Yeah. I
Or the
love
wolf of
that.
like your higher self. And so you notice the trigger and I was like, okay, which wolf am I going to feed? The one that's like going to like turn this into a battle where we could end up screaming at each other, or the one where it's like, I'm going to take a deep breath. I'm going to take a break. We're going to talk about it. And so that like played so much into like my anger reflex of noticing the hook and becoming, as he says, like the watcher. It's hard though. It's tricky.
I feel like you have such a good handle on that, though.
I think it takes practice, like just lots of practice of noticing it. And because I think it's taken me time to get to where I am now. And like I look at Eckhart, I'm like, oh, you're like the Jesus of this. And like he spent 2 years on a park bench, he says, you know, homeless without anything. And that was enlightening to me too. It's like you become a thought leader, because that's one of the things I want, like that inspires me, is like you become a thought leader not by consuming what's of the world, but by sitting with yourself and downloading what the universe has to give you. Stop consuming other stuff. Like you already have the stuff. Sorry, I like tangent.
Sorry, guys. Sorry. Oh my gosh.
So I forgot where I started, but that's where I ended. Of we have the things.
And also we had the dog contribute something too.
Yeah, she was just saying that she is on a path to understand how to live in the now and how to calm herself, which still takes a lot of work. This is sacred.
Hey.
Hi.
Welcome to the now.
Welcome to the now. This is the book of, did you read The Power of Now?
I don't think so.
I know your brother did.
No, I don't think so.
Yeah, that was one of the things that I was questioning too, to go kind of like piggyback off of what Nandi was saying. I have experienced a lot with that thought has crossed my mind today. I was experiencing anxiety with getting overwhelmed. Oscar was in my house today. Motherfucker was uninvited, but he was there. And so I had to take a step back, and the thought that kept coming through my mind was too much information overload. And I had this realization that you just said, Nandi, that was like, it doesn't matter how many books I study, and I'm a learner. It doesn't matter how many Pinterest boards I put together. It doesn't matter how many songs I listen to, until I like really sit with this and listen to what's going on. I don't know. Personally, for me, and maybe this is my resistance, so call me out on my BS if this is my resistance.
I'm calling you out right now.
I don't, okay, I'm just going to say this. I'm just going to accept it. I'm just going to come into the now and accept it. I don't feel like coming into the now or sitting with something is always the necessary step.
I agree with that.
Right? Do you?
Yeah, I do. There's a girl that I follow, Amanda Francis, and her podcast, you're going to like it. Her podcast is called And She Rises the Fuck Up. That's the name of her podcast. I love her podcast. But I think she agrees with the thought of like feeling the emotion, but she's also like, if it's a BS thought, it's a BS thought. We move on and we choose a thought that our higher self would be in alignment with. Mm-hmm. And so I agree with that of where it's like, yeah, great. Like I'm feeling a negative emotion, but sometimes I don't like to sit and process it. Sometimes I'm like, all right, what would my higher self think? I'm a badass life coach and I have shit to do. Okay, I get to that thought and I feel better. It doesn't always work, but sometimes it does, and sometimes I don't feel like I need to sit and figure out what's going on. I just need to step into the next version of me because she's got stuff to do. And it feels so much better to be in action and to be in alignment with myself sometimes rather than figuring out. And sometimes I do think there's a time and a place to sit there, and you have to figure it out, especially if it keeps coming. You need to sit with it. There's a reason it keeps coming back.
I think that's been one of the things I've worked on the most. Like realizing when I'm supposed to sit with an emotion and when I'm just letting the emotion confirm the negative story that I've told myself about whatever it is. And discerning is hard.
Yeah.
I was reading some Carl Jung stuff as well, and I remember him talking about the ego being a sort of something that is natural in a Western man or Western person, and it just talking about he talked about acceptance too, which was like accepting that you don't accept something. Like if and that's kind of like I think the part you guys were trying to say is the acceptance of not accepting something. Like if you don't like something or you don't like an emotion, instead of trying to like accept the emotion, you accept that you don't accept it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of like my problem is I've read too many things. I've listened to too many things. I've read Jung, Alan Watts. Well, there's more, but those are more pertinent ones. And it's there's a difference between Eastern and Western. Like Western is more psychology, more thought-based. Eastern is like it's not necessarily no thought, but it's the space of no thought and thought at the same time. And so like there's a lot of Eastern influences, it seems like, coming into the West now, especially with the last 20 years with internet. And I am kind of like just at a point where it's like I accept the ego on top of not accepting things, and it's a mishmash. But like I'm not even sure where I was going with that. Ladies and gentlemen, that's what ADD looks like right there.
I totally get that though. But there's so much that we get information from, and I completely agree with you. I have my coach over here who teaches a certain mindset, and then I have Gabby Bernstein, who I follow, who's very spiritual in nature, and then you have Marie Forleo. So you have all these different forms of input, and I think at the end of the day, what works for me is just figuring out what works for me of what speaks to me. What I love that Marie Forleo says at the beginning of her book is like, pick up what speaks to you and leave the rest. And that has always served me with everything. Of like, take what speaks to you, leave the rest of it. I feel like it speaks to certain people at different levels for a specific reason. We're all, I believe, big little pieces of a big puzzle. We all mesh together for specific reasons, and there's a reason that certain things are going to speak to you more so than they will me. And I think that it's important to just honor whatever you are aligned with. And you know what? That doesn't vibrate with me, and that's cool. You don't have to incorporate that.
Sounds great.
I agree. I feel like it's just like kind of like just take what you need, and I think that's important because like you said, like we're all different. And I recently was like helping out a friend, and he basically was trying to explain that like things are always up to interpretation, and I think because we all live different lives, we can get vastly different I guess nuggets of knowledge, if you will, from the same text. And like you said, it's very situational. What speaks to me right now may not have spoken to me 15 years ago. So I think, oh God, it's kind of like, it's really focusing on like the importance of being here in the now, you know?
So how have you guys seen this book? Like, I know you haven't fully read it, Steph, but I think you could probably use your knowledge from the Tao of Pooh, honestly. How would you say that this book so far has impacted your life and your choices and your situations and your relational outcomes so far?
I think about the idea of like there's a way that I believe I have to be. Like there's a way we're supposed to be. And I remember cognitively that that's not true, especially now with COVID. There's no way that any of us are supposed to be. But listening to this book recently has really reaffirmed that for me and given me the space to like, it's okay to rest. It's okay to just rest, right? And not for a purpose like I have to rest as and meditate because that's a part of my alignment checklist. Like rest can be like I can literally just sleep in until 11. I did that today, and it was so nice. But just like honoring those things, and it was so nice to just be reminded of that. And like I said, just bringing it back home to like you don't have to consume. Like I think that we live in a nation where that's where it's taught, and I'm not poo-pooing on our nation. I love to consume. I love all the things that I have, but I do think that it's also important to be able to separate the like consuming is not necessary for my being. Being is necessary for my being, and that has been, I think, the biggest impact of the book so far.
Which is like, I feel so ironic because we're consuming the book.
Yeah. Yeah, know? You're right. You're right, though.
By not doing, you know?
But I thought that was like a blessing because, like, I feel like for me, it's like I think if we're in a space where we have to consume, the power is in choosing what that looks like for your life, you know? And I think so often we don't really recognize that in each moment. I know I don't. Like, when she said it, it kind of was like, wow, like right now, like you said, me too, like we're reading this book, but the impact of that is going to, like Sasha said, you know, he's read it a couple times. Like it's going to continue to ripple effect in our life in a positive way rather than consuming something that might do the opposite, you know?
Yeah, and I really love what you just said too, Cynthia. You said the power is in choosing what we consume. When you feel like you need to consume something versus when you're choosing to consume something. I feel like that just creates so much space.
So for me, Eckhart Tolle, I think it's Tolle, was the first person that I even consulted after my incident that just kind of like really woke me up. It was one of those things where my mind just completely stopped. There wasn't a single thought, and I was so present in the moment. It was almost like a high. Like you're like, holy shit! Like, how do I get back here again? You know, and I felt that it's a pulsation between being there and not there for me. You know, like, because it's really easy to pick up your ego and just do what you do every day, you know, and just, it's nice I agree with Nandi about, you know, it's okay to rest. And it feels like I'm from Serbia, so I came to the States, and the whole culture is different. Here it's just go, get it. Success. That hasn't, as far as I'm concerned, most people haven't really defined what success is to them, because it just seems like it's this kind of like arbitrary amount of money that's a lot, but we don't know what that is. Like, and I got caught up in that, starting my business and doing all those, just going, and you know, it's like I paid a price for that because my mental health and my health just went to shitter from that. And see, there we go, ADD. Let's see, where am I going with that? Oh yeah, so like resting and just being in the now, and just not. I don't know. I think I might have gone past where we are, but
that's okay.
I just wanted to say about not caring about what others think. I think there's a lot of reminders in this book, if anything, that it's like I read it and then I'll listen to it again, and there's just a lot of reminders that are like, hey, slow down. It's really like, you don't have to constantly appease others and have to like pretend and put on a face and just like kind of be who you are type of thing. But there's a lot of reminders, one of which is like accepting the world as is and not trying to, like, you know, well, he doesn't tell you to try or not to try to do anything. He's very kind of he talks about that emptiness, the Buddhists call like the void, but it's not a not thing. And that's the tricky part. And I think sometimes when you get there, you really kind of like stop caring about what, just accept everything as is. And that to me, in this just rambling that I have, was a huge reminder. It's the last thing I was listening to in the book. And that was really helpful. And Nandi saying like, hey, you can rest. Like for me, I need rest. Like I'm one of those people, like I'm a late night person and I like to sleep. And if I don't get like 10 plus hours of sleep, man, and like, how can I compete with Arnold saying, hey, I only slept 4 hours? And it's like, bullshit, I can't do that. Does that mean I'm less? That's that another thing, comparing yourself with everything. It's very, our culture is very much like that. So thanks, Eckhart. I mean, he's been helping me, man. It's just reminders, constant reminders for me.
Yeah. I think that what I hear a lot with everybody saying with this book so far, and we have like 15 minutes left, unless you guys want to go longer. It's up to you guys. But everyone I hear so far is saying things that this book is reminding them of things that we already knew. Like none of this information is new. It's just simple. I think we've used that word a couple times. Slowing down, reminders. And if I could put this book in 3 words, that's what I would say. Simple, slow down, and reminder. I think I'll keep this question for there's a question I want to ask about the practicality of things, because he did bring to light there's a time for practical knowledge, and then there's a time for being present and just being in essence. And I wanted to actually sit down with everybody, probably do it on the 31st meeting when everybody's done with the full book, where we can finally sit down with and practically write a list of the things that might actually help us, or we can differentiate or discern what needs our attention and what doesn't need our attention. I think that would be really helpful to have in the back of our minds. The way this book has moved me so far, and we're a little more than halfway, probably about like chapter 6 into chapter 7. And I myself, we've been going on bike rides and practicing being in the now with nature, and we'll both have our headphones on, and then we'll like count down to 3 and press the play button on YouTube. So we'll listen to it at the same time, and then we'll look at each other when we hear a part we like, and we're like, so it's an interest, like we're getting read to by Eckhart Tolle together. But I still find myself needing to go back to my Kindle and listening to it, and then going over what I read and re-highlighting everything to make sure that I am consuming the proper amounts that I need to really fully integrate the teachings into my heart. And one of the things that I'm still trying to reconcile, that I don't even see as a problem until I bring awareness into it, is this idea of time. I'm just going to leave it at that.
Time is such a funny thing. It really is. I was thinking about time today again with like sleeping in. I was judging myself first of all. I was like, judgy, you need to be up. Like the person, you gotta wake up at 6:30 and have your celery juice and get on your Peloton and you gotta read your book and you gotta journal and you do all these things. And I was like, you know what? Today I'm gonna sleep. Okay, I'm gonna sleep. It's fine. And it was so interesting though when I was listening to the book. This thing about time, like he was saying, if you ask the owl what time it is, the owl will say the time is now. Like, what are you talking about? What? It's now. The what? Like, if you were to ask the animals, and that, I thought that was so funny. I was like, oh, you're right. The animals just have right now. And if I were to just think about that, I wouldn't be judging myself for sleeping in late. I wouldn't be judging myself for not being the person that wakes up at 5 a.m. every single day. Like, those things wouldn't exist. Mm-hmm. It would just be like, what is the intention I want to set? What are the things I want to do? Did I do them? Great. Like, I would just keep it moving. But there's all these other things that get in the way around time.
Mm-hmm.
too young. I'm too late. I should have done this already. Ah!
I honestly feel like, and going back on what all of you have said, I feel like even thinking about time, for some reason, time triggers our need for control.
Mm.
And no. But the whole idea wasn't this till before. I'm just saying, like, it just added on once you guys kept saying stuff. Because my mantra this year is, and I have to check myself every single day. Like, whenever I'm feeling something, I'm like, it's connecting versus controlling. So, like, one of my big values is connection. And I realize that sometimes because I want connection so bad, I fail and I end up controlling instead, or getting near that, or having these expectations of like how it should be and all that. So what you guys just said, that just made me think, well, time is sometimes the reason that I feel the need to control, because I don't want to waste time that I could be working on this, or to thinking that time is a waste, when what it really did for you, Nandi, was it recharged you. And like, you were able to give yourself what you needed. You connected to what your body was feeling, and in turn you're like, you feel better. You just feel better in general. Crazy.
I feel like letting go of time and letting go of controlling is the massive ego death. That's the like,
It's true though, when we can really sincerely just let go of the notion. There's so many time constructs, like how your day should be set up, at where you should be in your life. I am very guilty of, the like 30 under 30 in the Forbes list. I'm like, oh, that's so cool. I'm not 30 yet. I could be on that list. What do I need to do? Like, that's what my brain does with all this time. It's like, what do I need? Like, it's a way, you're right, of control. Like, I want my life to be this. Or I need to be, like, we set all these little contracts, but I think that there's a time and a place for them. I think that some deadlines serve us, right? There is a time and a place for having those sorts of things, but there's also a time and place to check in. Like you're saying, Steph, am I trying to control right now? Am I trying to like connect with me, my highest self, my friend, whoever? Like, where's this time thing coming from? And for me, when it came to my schedule, my sleep, it came from me trying to like control this idea of what I was supposed to be doing, how I was supposed to be. And I was like, you know what? No. I need to listen to my body today.
I don't do that enough.
Sure.
Definitely do that more.
I do not either. I was just telling Tyler, I was like, I don't think since this COVID has started and we've all been at home, not a Saturday, not a Sunday, not a single day have I not just rested. There's always been work or something or a meeting or something that I've set up, and today was like, no, I've worked almost more. And same with the girl that did my nails. She's like, I think I've worked more since things have shut down, because now I don't have my constructs and we have all this fluidity and we have like this idea of how we're supposed to be, but we've never ever experienced any of this before. There is no supposed to. And I love what you were saying, Sasha, about this arbitrary idea of success. We're arbitrarily chasing this idea of success within COVID. None of us have ever been in COVID. There's no such, like, we have to figure it out for ourselves and understand for ourselves what's going on. And Eckhart brings it home with just chill out. Chill out. Tap into you. You have the answers.
Yeah, and I can't help but so this book was even brought back to my attention that finally made me say, okay, I'll read it, was because his other book, A New Earth, which I have not read, somebody else had said is so freaking relevant to what's happening globally right now. And I couldn't help but tell people, because I've always believed, as above, so below. Whatever's happening on the individual plane is going to be happening on a larger construct. And so I have this belief and idea that the many of us who have been doing the work to kind of pause, slow down, and meditate, the world on a global scale is being forced to do the same thing. And unfortunately, it's not a comfortable process all the time. Go ahead.
So I feel like Nandi would really like this because you're a fan of memes, just like I am. That there was this meme that said something like coronavirus, and then it said, "We're gonna make you slow down and reflect on your inner self, and this is a time for reflection." And then it says, "Me, nah, I'm gonna bake banana bread instead."
Yeah.
Basically, like a lot of people are which nothing wrong with that. Absolutely nothing wrong. Like, you are diving into certain things, but there are people who are using this time to do that and self-discover and grow in that time. But yeah, that just made me think, I'm gonna find it and send it to both of you.
Well, no, because that's how I feel. What I was saying about, like, I don't feel like entering the presence is always the correct thing. Like, for the past couple days, and this has kind of been what I'm starting to realize now in this fucking moment, is part of my journey has been understanding that I am intuitively a more masculine-oriented person, which means I like action, I like going, I like drive, I like creating, I like doing, I like moving, I like pursuing. And so the yin part of me that wants to sit down with it is so crucial and necessary, but I feel like my inner child just wants to go outside and play in the sun and throw leaves up and stuff, but I'm still trying to reconcile that part of myself that's like, oh, I threw leaves up and accidentally just like punched my boyfriend in the face because I wasn't being mindful, you know, like
Wow.
I'm just excited, and I'm trying to understand where my excitement meets my impulsivity. So I assume that I have to go back in to understand that, only to find out as soon as I get out of meditation, I'm still just as clumsy. So
Write that down. Write that down for me. That whole little spiel.
girl, it's recorded. It's okay. It's recorded.
Oh my gosh, I have never heard something more me. I'm just like, but the sky's alive, so I'm alive.
I have to go play now.
It reminds me when you're saying that of like when our parents tell us it's nap time, right? It's like,
Yeah.
it's nap time, you're like, I want to take a nap, but we needed the nap, right? We needed the nap.
Mom Nandi, Mother Nandi, Mama Nandi.
That's literally like my life every day. Like today, like my daughter Camille, she knows what time nap time is.
Oh.
And she got to her grandma's house, and she's like, nap time? Because she's like, I'm supposed to be laying down.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yes.
I'm hoping that she keeps that rhythm. But, you know, kids don't know what they don't know. They don't know, like, hey, listen, when you get older, you got to pay bills and you got to work. Like, right now, you're free. You get to do whatever you want, you know?
I don't know, though. I feel like you're creating such strong and this is another topic, but I feel like you're creating such strong boundaries and structure within your child by incorporating those elements of rest, like showing her it's important to have those and remember this is what it feels like to feel good after you sleep. You know? Otherwise, we probably wouldn't choose that for ourselves.
Take it from the teacher. They need it.
Yeah.
Take it from the teacher. They need it.
Good. Yes. I feel better because at first, like, she didn't want to sleep in her crib. She's, like, crying about it. But then it's like she realized, like, no, this is good. This is actually very beneficial for all of us. And I love nap time, too. That's my problem. Is like, now I'm like, oh, it's nap time? Okay. Like, I'm waiting on it. So I don't know how I'm going to go back into the real world when I got to go places and I'm like, yo, it's nap time.
But that's sort of the conversation I feel like is starting around some businesses of respecting and honoring the fact that the world is being put in a time out and a lot of businesses are still able to run, right? So some are not having so much of a great time, but others are being able to reflect and see, okay, cool, I'm still as productive when my people are at home and have rest. And
Right.
Tyler was talking to his boss, and they're talking about like, oh, maybe we'll start incorporating like meditation breaks. I think that there's this movement, like you're saying, Victoria, of emotional intelligence being important, of being recognized, of
A value.
yes, that's a value, that we can no longer shame people for feeling. We can no longer shame people for being human beings in the world. And
Oh my
I'm
gosh.
hoping, I'm like, please let it not just be in my imagination, but I just feel like it is a growing awareness that we have to stop shaming us for being us. That's the whole problem that's being perpetuated. The humans are shaming the humans for being humans.
Yeah. Well, I think that speaks to the fact that like it's ultimately about balance. Like we have so many issues because we create them ourselves. And something can only become a collective thing if each of us at an individual level are buying into it. So I think it's really recognizing that like by me being balanced and by me helping other people to live more balanced lives and being more judgment free and what have you, that is going to affect the greater, the greater mass of us.
Which I feel like takes a brave person to be able to step out of that societal construct to say, I don't care if I'm risking my identity in the group. I could be exiled, but this is what's good for me. And I think Nandi's right. I think we're all right. I think there's been that wave of people willing to step into what they actually need versus what the world is telling them they should want. And it can be a very lonely or isolated journey, but it doesn't have to be. And I think because I don't know, like Nandi, you had posted something on your stories saying like, how many of you have made more friends during quarantine? And I was like, I never go out, but I've made good people.
Right?
I've met good people. I don't think that the journey that can only be taken alone, I don't think that the journey that can only be done by yourself has to be taken alone.
Wow. I'm gonna make that a screensaver.
That's the Yoda right there.
Girl, calligraphy that for me.
Listen, don't play with me. Send them to me. I will get you a square format in calligraphy. Send me your background color too. Nandi knows I'll do it.
Oh. that was a trust follower. Trust fall.
Okay, so
No, but I appreciate y'all, and it's been an hour, so I don't mind going a little bit over if you guys don't want to, but I also don't want to exhaust the energy that we all have. So it's up to you guys. Otherwise, we can wrap it up.
you said you had a question for us, didn't you?
I was gonna ask.
Stephanie is an elephant in a past life because you remember all the things.
Girl, I know I really was an elephant. Like I know it. I feel it.
I love it. Elephants are the best.
Yes.
Oh yeah, Cynthia's thing is elephants. She's like,
She remembers everything.
It's raining.
but no, the question I'm gonna save the question for the 31st because I think after reading the full book, we might be able to have a better understanding of what's practical and what's not, and maybe we'll discover that's different for everybody.
Well, when you say that, I don't know if this is related or not, but it makes me think of the story, and maybe you guys have heard it, but the story of this like guy, and he's in the ocean and he's sinking. His ship's sinking, and so somebody comes by to help him. He's like, "No, God will save me," and the guy goes by. Have you heard the story?
Please.
And so then the next guy comes by and he's like still sinking in his boat, and the guy's like, "Hey, can I help you?" He's like, "Don't worry, God will save me." Second guy leaves. Third time, same thing happens. The guy ends up dying. Goes to heaven. He's like, "God, hello? Why didn't you save me?" God's like, "I sent you 3 people." What in the world? And so when you were talking about the practicality, I think that's the piece of like being able to be practical of like, if a tornado's coming, yes, you're going to pray to Jesus, but you're also going to run. Like, it's having both.
Get you legs, girl.
Yes, exactly. So that's what that made me think of, and I wanted to share that story in case anybody else hadn't heard that. I love that one.
I'm glad I heard the story now. I had never heard that before.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Has everybody heard the wolf story that Nandi was talking about before?
Mm-mm.